Hello everyone, today we're building an entire zombified piglin fortress in the Nether, a fortress that turns one of the most dangerous places in Minecraft into a powerful source of gold, experience and resources. A fortress that will require a lot of cobblestone and wood, but is still simple enough for anyone to recreate in their own world. No impossible mega builds, no complicated redstone that only experts understand. Let's not keep you waiting any longer, let's get started. Alright, here we go. First, we build a long pathway. The reason is pretty simple. We don't want the zombified piglins from the future farm to aggro the ones coming through the portal into the overworld, because once that starts happening, things can get messy very quickly. So before we build the farm itself, we make sure everyone stays where they're supposed to be. I made the pathway 50 blocks long, probably a bit more than necessary, but when it comes to angry zombified piglins, I'd rather have too much distance than not enough. Next, we build another pathway, about 24 blocks long, leading from our AFK spot to where the farm will be. Now for the platform itself, I made it 42 blocks long and 26 blocks wide. While I was building, a ghast tried to sneak up on me. Big mistake. I activated full matrix mode, dodged the fireball, and went right back to building like nothing happened. Now for the spawning levels. I'm building 2 of them, which is actually more than I'll probably ever need. Eventually the ghasts became a little too interested in what I was doing, so I decided to close off my portal for now. Not because I was scared, but because I didn't want a ghast's fireball to shut down my portal and leave me without a way home. I was about to take out a magma cube and almost hit a piglin instead. That was way too close. One wrong swing, and this entire place could have turned into a very expensive mistake. But luck is still on our side, for now. We're finishing the main levels now, but this is just the foundation. As we build the outer walls, the upper floors will gradually expand and take their final shape. Looks like one of the piglins decided to inspect my work. Apparently he approved of it, because a few seconds later, he went off to invite the others to come see the fancy new walls I'm building for them. Before we move on, don't forget the bottom slab roof. With that taken care of, it's time for the next step, trapdoors. The trapdoors go all around the perimeter for one simple reason. We need a way to get rid of the piglins, because after a while, there will be a lot of them. And if too many start hanging around, they'll take up the mob cap and reduce the number of zombified piglins spawning. Now it's time to gather some resources and come back for the main wall decoration. I wanted the walls to have a bit more depth instead of looking completely flat, so I tried to create a subtle 3D effect using the blocks we have available. And honestly, I think it turned out pretty well. After making a piglin angry by opening a chest, and receiving a couple of arrows in return, we head back to building, with arrows still stuck in our leg of course, because apparently that's just part of the construction process now. With the first part of the decoration in place, we can finally extend the ceilings to their full size. The structure is starting to take shape now, and it's getting a lot easier to see the final design. But there's one important rule here. Never leave more than 2 blocks of height, because if an enderman can fit in there, he'll eventually find a way to ruin your plans, and I'd rather finish the farm myself than let an enderman redesign it for me. And now for the hardest part, making sure I don't mess up the block alignment for the design, because trust me, I've done that before. You place one block in the wrong spot, and somehow, your brain just accepts it as correct. Then you keep building for the next 10 minutes like nothing happened, only to realize later that the entire section is shifted by one block. Now we can remove all the temporary supports. They've done their job, and every block we clear means a little more space for zombified piglins to spawn, which is exactly what we want. And with that done, it's time for the easy part. Repeat the same design and build the remaining walls. After spending what felt like an endless amount of cobblestone and time, I think it turned out pretty well. Honestly, this entire farm consumed around 2 double chests of cobblestone. The build feels a lot more alive now, and the walls actually have some character to them. But what do you think? And now for the interesting part. You might be wondering, okay, you've sealed all the walls, so how exactly are you planning to aggro them from all the way over there? Fair question. But we're going to do this the clever way. We already know that piglins can pass their aggro to other piglins. The important part is this. From what I've noticed, the aggro only seems to chain about 4 times. So we're going to build a little zombified piglin relay station. 3 piglins will act as the signal repeaters. And the 4th transfer will reach everyone else running toward us. A bit strange, maybe. A bit complicated? Also maybe. But if it works, it's a surprisingly elegant solution. Now for a little more decoration, and a special place for the main victim of this entire operation. The zombified piglin who's going to spend the rest of his life getting snowballs thrown directly at his face. Not because he did anything wrong, but because if the farm ever stops working, he'll be the one responsible for getting everyone angry again. A tough job. But somebody has to do it. As for the walls, here's the plan. We've already got the 2 main towers at the entrance, and our poor guard on top, the one whose entire job is catching snowballs with his face. Next, we'll add 4 more towers around the edges. These will be the supporting towers. Nothing too fancy, but they'll help tie the whole structure together and make it feel more like a proper fortress. Then we'll connect everything with walls in between. That way, the farm won't just be efficient. It'll actually look like a fortified stronghold floating out here in the Nether. I really hope I managed to capture the atmosphere I had in mind with these builds. I wanted this place to feel like it belonged here, like a real fortress standing in the middle of the Nether. I was building away, minding my own business, and then I realized something. The walls were built on the wrong line, so instead of pretending it never happened and hoping nobody notices, let's not drag out the suspense. Time to tear them down and build them all over again. The reason for that mistake is actually pretty simple. My walls are 3 blocks deep. I didn't want to overcomplicate the design by making the towers even bigger, so I kept both the walls and the towers the same depth, which means the walls should have started right from the inner edge, not from the center. So yeah, sorry about that. But honestly, yo, I think moments like this are important. They remind you that I'm just a regular person, same as all of you. I make mistakes, I misplace blocks, I spend half an hour building something before realizing it needs to be rebuilt. And I'd rather show that than polish the video so much that it looks like some alien built everything perfectly on the first try. Because survival was never meant to be perfect. Now we're placing buttons to make sure nothing decides to spawn where it shouldn't, a small detail. But these little things are what keep the farm running smoothly. With that done, we can get back to building our fortress. For now, I'll use torches instead of campfires. Once I gather enough wood, I'll come back and replace them with the real thing. Sometimes you work with what you have, and save the finishing touches for later. And finally, our fortress is starting to take shape. I originally tested a version of this farm that was about half the size, and even that one produced around 300 gold ingots per hour. I never properly tested this larger version before recording, but when you see the results, I think you'll be just as surprised as I was. Let's just say this farm should be more than enough, not only for Skyblock, but for almost any survival world. And the best part? It's simple, compact, and realistic enough that anyone can build it. Because that's what this channel is really about. Not impossible mega builds that look amazing, but only a handful of people can recreate. But practical projects that ordinary players can actually build and enjoy themselves. Half of the fortress is finished now, and honestly, it's looking pretty good so far, at least I hope so. We finish up another section of the wall, only to discover that I've run out of torches to keep the area lit while building. Of course. Because no project is complete without at least one unexpected supply run. So, we'll put up a fence along the road of death. Head back for more torches. And while we're there, we'll grab the campfires too. That way, when we return, the walls can finally start taking on their final form. And little by little, this fortress is becoming exactly what I imagined. By the way, back in the previous episode, while I was building the mob farm, a wandering trader decided to pay me a visit. Unfortunately, he wasn't selling anything interesting, and I didn't exactly have a pocket full of emeralds anyway. So, following the good old tradition, I negotiated custody of his llamas. I've actually been thinking about building some kind of trading post in the future. Alright then, we've got everything we need, so it's time to head back to our fortress. There's only one wall left to finish, and then the really interesting part begins. We'll finally bring this whole thing to life and make it work. Nothing too complicated, just a couple of technical details and a few finishing touches. Now it's time to turn it from a fortress into a farm. Now we're placing all the campfires in their proper spots. And in just a moment, I'll show you how this whole thing works. Inside, we've got our zombified piglins secured in boats. Now we break open the roof so they can see each other. Now we need to place buttons anywhere we've left exposed surfaces. The goal is simple, make sure ghasts and endermen don't decide to move in uninvited. We've got a lot of wood built into this fortress, and one stray ghast fireball could turn half of our hard work into a very expensive bonfire. Zombified piglins have a limited aggro range, so to make the whole system as reliable as possible, it's best to place them as close to the center of the fortress as you can. Now it's time to place our guard at the fortress itself. His job? To let everyone know that the enemy is at the gates. The moment he gets angry, the alarm goes out across the entire fortress, and suddenly every zombified piglin knows exactly where to run. We'll place a couple of trapdoors here. Do they actually help? Honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I just had a feeling the piglins might line themselves up a little better and fall onto the ladder more consistently. As I came back to finish building our little station, I noticed the piglins standing nearby. And honestly, that was perfect timing, because I had just started wondering how I was going to drag one all the way over here from the farm. After getting him safely into a boat and moving him away from our AFK spot, it's time to build the fence walls. And honestly, fences are incredibly useful here. First of all, nothing can hit you through them, which makes collecting the loot a lot safer. And second, they're perfect for picking up everything the zombified piglins drop without getting yourself involved in the chaos. Now, at the very spot where the piglins land, you'll notice I've placed 2 bottom slabs, and that's done for 2 important reasons. First, even the baby zombified piglins won't be able to fit through a half-block gap once we open the lower fences. No unexpected escape attempts. And second, later on we'll need to place hoppers underneath these slabs to automate the collection system. That simply wouldn't work if the piglins were standing on full blocks instead. Now it's time to cover our entire AFK area with buttons to make sure nothing decides to spawn where it shouldn't. Before moving on, double check everything. Make sure you've blocked every possible path to your position and spawn-proofed every spot that doesn't belong in the farm. Because this isn't one of those mistakes you can casually walk away from. Zombified piglins can take us out in just 2 hits, and after putting all this time into the build, I'd rather not lose everything because I forgot a single block, so take an extra minute, check your work. And now, with a pocket full of snowballs, it's finally time to test the results. We finally get to see if this fortress actually works the way it was meant to. So let's wake up our very patient guard, throw the first snowball. And this is what the farm looks like from the inside. Now we're checking that even the zombified piglins in the farthest corners are getting aggroed properly. Because that's exactly what this entire system was designed to do. And one more thing, there shouldn't be a single piglin left inside the farm. That's the whole reason we placed those trapdoors around the perimeter in the first place. If everything is built correctly, this is roughly the number of zombified piglins you can expect to see, and honestly, it's pretty insane. In just a few minutes, I managed to collect around 80 gold ingots by hand, and that's without any automation. Once we add hoppers and minecarts to handle the collection, the farm should become even more efficient. And this is what I call more than enough for just about any need, whether it's powered rails, golden carrots, bartering, or simply never worrying about gold again. The only exception might be if you're aiming for the biggest beacon possible. In that case, you may have to stand here for a little while longer. Even in a space that's 2 blocks wide, they end up exceeding the entity cramming limit, and start damaging themselves just by standing there. No traps, no extra mechanics, just too many zombified piglins packed into one place. Looking at the number of swords we're getting now, I'm seriously thinking about making a separate episode dedicated to sorters and all those little quality of life systems that make survival so much easier. Item sorters, storage solutions, simple automation. Nothing overly complicated, just practical builds that save you time and frustration. What do you think? And now we can finally put all this gold to good use. Golden apples for curing villagers are definitely at the top of the list. In fact, I'm thinking about treating 4 villagers at the same time to speed things up a little. As for the rest of the gold, I'll probably trade it for gravel to make more dirt. Because as useful as farms are, I don't want this world to be nothing but machines and production lines. Maybe it's time to build a small green meadow with a few decorations. A place that feels a little more alive, a little more cozy. I don't know about you, but I'm honestly shocked by the number of completely intact golden swords we're getting. And then there's the experience. I'm still not sure whether I'll find enough diamonds for an enchanting table anytime soon. Maybe I'll end up searching for them in the end instead. But even without that, for the overworld, this is already pretty impressive. And with that, we've reached the end of today's video. One last look at the results of all our hard work. This project took a lot more effort than it might seem at first glance. 2 full double chests of cobblestone, a lot of wood, countless trips back and forth, and more than a few mistakes along the way. But in the end, we transformed a lonely corner of the Nether into a fully functional floating fortress of zombified piglins. Stay wary, try not to die, and see you in the next one.